Hi guys, today I'm going to show you how to grow tomatoes from seeds. I'm going to show you how to get your seeds started, how to care for your little plants as they start growing. I start my tomato seeds about 6 weeks before my frost-free season begins. For those of you in the United States, I will put a link down in the description that will help you to figure out when your last frost date is. For those of you that live in other countries, you can try to find that information online. Talk to your friends and neighbors, anybody you know that grows a garden or farms, and see if they can help you out. First, I want to talk about what kind of containers that you can start your seeds in. These two are cell packs, and they usually come with a flat, and I'll show you guys what a flat looks like here in a little bit. In each of these packs, you can fit 6 plants. These cells are a little bit larger than these. And then you could also start it in a different container. Here's a little paper cup, for example. If you don't want to use plastic, you just have to make sure that you put a hole in the bottom so that the water can drain out. And this is another option, a larger container like this. If you start in smaller containers like these, eventually you're going to have to pot your plant up into a bigger container because it will outgrow these little containers. But if you start in a larger container like this one, you might be able to get away with not potting your plants up at all. When starting your seeds, you're going to want to start with either a seed starting mix or a potting mix. You can use either or, but ideally you want to go with the seed starting mix. I have used both. No matter which one you choose, you do want to choose a mix that is sold indoors at the store so that the mix is dry. You don't want to be starting with something that has been sitting outside in a garden center on a pallet. This one here is a seed starting mix, and it's a really fine texture. It's really good for starting seeds in. As I said before, the potting mix is fine to start seeds into, but as you can see, it has a lot of chunks of wood and stuff like that in it. You can just pick it out. It's really not a huge deal. Also, a lot of times potting mixes have slow release fertilizers in them. This one does as well. When your seeds are very young, they don't need any fertilizer, so it's not necessary to have a fertilizer in your seed starting mix at all. Because this seed starting mix is very dry, I do like to pre-moisten it before I plant my seeds. So to do that, I just pour some water in here and then I mix this all around with my hands. And I want this to just be slightly moist. I'm not looking for it to be sopping wet. Some of this was already wet, so I didn't really have to add too much water. But when I pick it up and I squeeze it, some water comes out, but not too much. That's about as wet as you want to get this stuff. Now I'm ready to start filling up my little container. So I'm just going to take some of this potting soil and drop it in here. This is actually a mix of potting soil and seed starting mix, since I already had some potting mix in my little dish pan there. Just fill it up and then I press it down because there's a lot of space left there still. And now I'm just going to fill it all the way up. Press it down again, and that looks pretty good. I'm ready to get some seeds planted. I'm making 2 little indentions in each seed cell where I'm going to plant the seeds. I'm dropping a seed into each one. You don't have to plant these very deep, just cover them up. And that's it. I like to keep track of which varieties I'm growing, so I have a plant label here. And believe it or not, pencil stays on these plant labels better than marker does. These are the grow lights that I'm currently using. They're actually shop lights. The bottom one is a 5,000 lumens LED light, and the one on top has fluorescent T8 daylight bulbs in it. The LED light is new to me this year. I just bought this one. It's working pretty good. I'm still not entirely sure on how close my plants need to be to this light, so I'm still learning about that one. But I've been using the T8 daylight fluorescent bulbs for years, and they have worked wonderfully. With that shop light, I like the light to be about 2 to 4 inches above my plant's leaves so that they grow nice strong stems. If the light is too far away from the plants, they're going to get tall, leggy stems, and that is not a good thing. I turn my lights on when I get up in the morning, and then I turn them off before I go to bed. You can leave your lights on anywhere from 12 to 16 hours. 14 to 16 hours are probably best. Once your seedlings sprout, it's going to look like this and have these two cotyledon leaves. These are the first leaves that your plants will make. During the seed starting phase and this cotyledon phase, the way that I water my plants is just spray them like this with a spray bottle. It's a nice gentle watering, and it's not going to disturb the very shallow roots on this plant, and it's not going to disturb the little seeds that haven't sprouted yet. I get a lot of questions about how to water plants, so I want to touch on that for a second. This is what dry soil looks like, okay? This is wet soil. As you can see, it's quite a bit darker. When your plants are still in their seed, you want to keep the top of this soil moist at all times. Again, you don't want it sopping wet, just moist so that the seed can germinate. Seeds do need moisture to germinate. So at this point, don't let it dry out. Right here, I wouldn't let it dry out either because this plant has really shallow roots. Once your plant gets this big though, you can start letting the surface of the soil just here on top dry out a little bit before you water it. This plant has some of its true leaves. The roots are starting to stretch down further into the pot. I wouldn't let it dry out too much, but if you see the surface of the soil looking a little dry, that's fine. Just water it at that point. And even when the surface of the soil is dry up here, there's usually still some moisture down here unless you've let it go too long. When my plant gets to this size, this is how I water it. And just let it soak in a little bit. Maybe do another little pour of water, and that's all I'll put on there. You can bottom water your plants if you want to. I actually prefer to top water them. I feel like I have more control over how much water is going in here, and I find that I have less problems with algae growing on here when I water it like this. But I will show you how to bottom water your plants in case you're interested in that. Here we have a seed flat, and to bottom water a seed flat, you just take out your little seed cell pack and pour some water in here. You just want to kind of cover the whole bottom of the seed flat with water, and then put your little cell tray back in there, and the roots will soak up the water from the bottom. Once you see that there's moisture at the very top, then all you need to do is take this seed flat and drain out the extra water, because you don't want that sitting in there in the bottom. If you'd rather water your plants this way, it's also an option. Here's some nice looking tomato plants. If I was going to be planting these out in the ground maybe a week from now, I'd probably just leave them in my little cell packs here. But these are not going to go outside until at least the first week in May, maybe that weekend. Each little plant has their little cotyledon leaves. This one has lost one, but that's okay. Those do fall off. And this one has 4 little stems with leaves on them. So these are ready to get transplanted into bigger containers so their roots can continue to grow strong. Here's some ideas for containers that you can use. One of these big plastic cups, I think this is a 16 ounce, maybe a 20 ounce. If you don't like plastic, you can also use a paper cup. Just be sure to put a hole in the bottom. Same goes for this plastic cup. I like to put my plants up into 9 ounce cups, and that's what size this one is. These clear plastic cups also work really well. I've used those many years. When using the plastic cups, I just like to make a little stack like this and then drill a hole right here. And one little hole like this is sufficient for water drainage. The first thing I do is label my cup so I know which variety I have grown in here. And you can also pop one of these in there if you want to. I'm going to start with just putting a little bit of potting soil down here in the bottom of the cup. To get my plant out of here, just going to give this a little squeeze. And it's popping right out. If you have a hard time getting it out, you can turn it over on its side like this, squeeze it, pull it out. Be careful not to break off the stem when you pull it out. The plant's roots look really nice. It's not root bound yet. If the roots were wrapping around in a circle like this, that would mean that the plant was a little bit root bound. If it was root bound, I would try to loosen the bottom here a little bit and unwind that root, but this looks fine. Tomato plants grow roots all along the stem where the stem has contact with the soil. So I'm going to bury this plant really deep in this cup. This time I'm using potting soil. I haven't fertilized these plants with anything except now they have a little bit of fertilizer in this potting mix. And I know that I started some seeds earlier in this video with a combination of potting soil and seed starting mix, but these plants I have been growing in my house for a few weeks now. They were started in a seed starting mix. They look really healthy and I haven't needed to fertilize them at this point. When adding potting soil to your cup, take care not to get it on the leaves of the plant. This potting mix does have some fertilizer granules in it, and I don't want fertilizer sitting on the leaves because it could burn them. When my plants are this size, I water them deeply so that the water drains out of the hole that's in the bottom of the cup. And again, with these, you can let the top of the soil dry out before you water them again. Now these are going to go back in my house under my grow lights. I have started hardening them off a little bit. Hardening off your plants is really important and you definitely do not want to skip that step. So I'm going to put a link to a video where I show you how to harden off your tomato plants down in the description, and I'll also put a link up on the screen. And that's all for this video. I hope it was helpful. If you have any questions, let me know. Thank you guys for watching and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.